Okay, well, that being the case, it's 5:31. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. First item on our agenda is roll call.
Mooney?
Mooney here.
Mooney here. Erickson?
Erickson here.
Erickson here. View? Is View? View?
You're
Bruce?
on mute, Bruce. You're muted, Bruce.
View here.
View
I was
here.
having trouble getting my microphone to open.
Okay, Healy?
Healy here.
Healy here. City Commission Liaison Sarda?
Sarda here.
Sarda here. Vice Chairman Winandy?
Winandy here.
Okay. And also for the meeting minutes, Amy Leon, and Dave Mingo, and Michael Welch.
Yep.
Sorry, Welch. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Brooke. So we'll move on to the next item of business is consideration of the June 8th, 2020 meeting minutes, which were included in your packets. Are there any corrections or additions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I move that we accept them as they were presented. Mooney seconds that motion.
Motion by Erickson, second by Mooney. Any further discussion? All right, Brooke, roll call, please.
Erickson? Erickson?
Erickson, yes.
Erickson, yes. View?
View, yes.
View, yes. Healy?
Healy, yes.
Healy, yes. Mooney?
Mooney, yes.
Mooney, yes. And Winandy?
Winandy, yes.
Winandy, yes.
Okay, so the meeting's minutes are approved. So next item is public appearances and introductions. So Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but the public can participate in a few ways here tonight, whether they're at the meeting room for any in-person comments, they can do through the YouTube channel or via email or phone. Is that correct?
That is correct. We're monitoring all of those. And right now we would just ask Dwayne to report if there are any members of the public in the meeting room that would like to comment.
We have no one making a public appearance.
Okay. Well, should we move on to the consent items then? We will be working through these one at a time. We have several tonight to consider, but the first one is to establish the next regular meeting as a date for a public hearing to consider an extraterritorial jurisdiction conditional use permit for additional height on a tower at 2000 South Dakota Highway 314. Is there a motion to consider that?
I will move that we consider it.
Healy seconds.
Motion by Erickson, second by Healy. Roll call, please, Brooke.
View?
View, yes.
View, aye. Healy?
Healy, yes.
Healy, aye. Mooney?
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Erickson?
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. And Winandy?
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Okay, so that will move on to our agenda for the next meeting in August. Item number 2 on the consent agenda is to establish the next regular meeting as a date for a public hearing to consider an amendment to an adjacent conditional use permit for a self-storage facility, address being 3010 Piper Street. Is there a motion on this item?
Healy moves. Motion.
Hill, second.
Motion by Healy, second by View. Brooke, roll call, please.
Yes, Healy.
Aye.
Healy, aye. Yep. Mooney.
Mooney abstain?
Mooney abstains. Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. View.
Hill, aye.
View, aye. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, which is establish the next regular meeting as a date for a public hearing to reconsider a rezoning from R2 single family residential to B2 highway business on a triangular parcel as platted in book S9, page 56. Address is 3007 West St. Louis Road. Is there a motion on this item?
Erickson moves to accept that date at our next meeting.
Is there a second?
Healy second.
Motion by Erickson, second by Healy. Roll call, please.
Mooney.
Mooney, I.
Mooney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, aye. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Okay, and number 4 under the consent agenda tonight is establish the next regular meeting as a date for a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility, B2 highway business, on a triangular parcel platted in book S9, page 56. Address again is 3007 West St. Louis Road. Is there a motion on this item?
Erickson moves to consider this for our next public hearing. Mooney seconds.
Motion by Erickson, second by Mooney. Roll call, please.
Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, aye. Mooney.
Mooney, I.
Mooney, aye. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
All right, so that takes care of the consent agenda for tonight. We will move on to old business. First item under old business is a public hearing to consider an extraterritorial jurisdiction conditional use permit for additional additional height on a tower. The address being 2000 South Dakota Highway 314. Dave, you indicate that the applicant has delayed this until August. Any further comment on that?
No, the only thing I would say is I have a typo in the agenda. It is not an action item. Technically, you established a hearing, but we didn't publish it, so it isn't. Just wanted to explain that to the public that there will be no discussion on this item tonight since the applicant pulled the request after your meeting last month, but before the required publication timeline kicked in. So that was one of the consent items you saw earlier tonight. We'll be talking about it next month at length. so we can move on to new business.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. And our first item on new business is a review of the draft 5-year capital improvement plan. So with that, Amy, I will turn this discussion over to you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, and thank you, Planning Commission. Can everybody hear me okay? Somebody with a camera, give me a thumbs up or a head nod. Okay, thank you. First of all, for allowing this format and being sensitive to this format. I just want to let everyone know, I'm going to let people know during the City Commission meeting as well, but one of our big concerns at the city is the fact that we are an essential service, and no matter what happens, there's things that the city has to do. So we've been real hyper vigilant about how we're interacting and wanting to really do the social distancing and the face coverings and anything that we can to keep our employees as healthy as we can and keep our city going. So thank you for playing your part. I know it's tough, and I know Mike Healy wants to give me a fist bump right now, but we're going to have to wait to do that. So when we can do that, we will. We're just being real careful for the time being. I also know you have a heavy agenda, so I'm going to be very brief tonight, and then if we have time, I can circle back and go into more detail. And I'm also willing to come back and visit with you all another time when you have a lighter agenda, if that's helpful, if you'd like to have more information. The reason why I think that's going to be okay this year when it comes to talking about our capital improvement plan is the fact that even though I need to submit it to the City Commission by the end of this month, it is going to be very fluid. We have so many things we don't know. Number one, we don't know the long-term economic impacts of COVID-19. We're still in the black in our sales tax, but I expect we'll see some more softening, and we don't know what the fall will bring either. So while we have projects and plans made, they're very, very fluid. We also are still waiting in the wings of FEMA and what funds we may have awarded to us for repairs along Martin Creek. So that is part of our budget that we definitely want to include in our CIP and have projects planned for it. However, we don't know what kind of funding we're looking at quite yet. So that's another moving target, so to speak, when it comes to our capital improvements for 2021 and beyond. We also don't have a clear picture yet on what will be recommended to work on for our EDA grant that we received. Some of you might have heard we received about $6 million in grant funding, and we have some match that goes along with that to do some repairs and to put some redundancy into our wastewater treatment plant. We're still working with our engineers about what those specific things may be. So we are going to have to submit a plan. That's our best work for now, and then ask the City Commission to be fluid with that. So I'm going to go over just some of the more, I guess, regular funding projects that we have planned in our scheduled 506 plan, so road construction, that type of thing, and then ask you if you have specific questions. And again, I'll also circle back with you if you'd like at the end of the meeting, or be available at another time if you want to talk in further detail. The other unknown for us is our CARES Act funding. So we can apply for some CARES Act funding for things that we purchased associated with COVID-19, but we can't, we can't tell them we're going to pay for 12th Street or Riverside Drive with the CARES Act funds. So that plays a role in this discussion, but it's not really an answer to some of our infrastructure needs. So when it comes to the 506, one of the big plant projects that we have planned is the Cedar Street Bridge. When we started looking at the Cedar Street Bridge, that was a repair project, and now enough time has passed and enough wear has occurred on that bridge that that's a replacement type project. So we have looked into a couple different funding programs for that bridge project, bridge replacement. Likely the engineering and architecture design will take place in 2021, with hopefully we're able to do some construction through 2022-23. So that will be a big, a large project, a large capital improvement. But as we've learned, we definitely have to keep up with our capital improvement plan on our bridges and roads. So that's one of the major projects that we have planned there. In terms of streets, we have West Street from 8th to 9th planned for some water utilities, as well as Broadway, 31st Street to Wilson Trailer, that's a water main. Spruce Street, 4th to 6th Street. And then we have Jacqueline Circle, and that's a water main project. So I tell you those first because oftentimes what we try to be smart about is if we're going to change and dig up what infrastructure is underneath the street, we try to coincide those as best as we can when we can with our actual street reconstruction. So street reconstruction or building new streets will include 23rd Street west of West City Limits Road. That's part of the tax increment district number 8. Then we have Spruce Street 4th to 6th. 30th Street West City Limits Road to Adkins. Whiting Drive, Burley to Fertig, and that will be a concrete street reconstruction. So that is still pretty aggressive. Do I know that we will have that type of revenue that we can complete all those capital improvements? No. This is a plan, and we'll see how we do as the year continues. The way I look at capital improvement plans, however, is that, the infrastructure isn't going to get cheaper to install later, and it also is still going to continue to deteriorate. So kicking the can down the street might be possible for a year or two, but we can't kick it down the street in perpetuity, or we end up with the inability to keep up with regular maintenance. So we're still going to try to push forward and just monitor our budget as we move ahead. We also have, a lot of equipment purchases that need to be done, and I won't talk through all of those, but, we always have a number of vehicles that need to be taken care of. We have buildings that need to be taken care of and facilities, so we have a number of things in the CIP associated with building maintenance or actual purchase of equipment. Trailers, trucks, I think we have a loader in for next year as well. So some of those basic pieces of equipment that we just have to stay abreast of and keep in good working order. Not a lot at the airport. There's a lot going on this year, so we're going to give Mike and Dave a little break at the airport next year. We hope to be purchasing some playground equipment for Westbrook Estates, that green space area there, and perhaps doing a few improvements in Westside Park. That kind of depends a little bit on grant funding and what we can find for those. But definitely those things take a secondary role or backseat to the core infrastructure that we just need to make sure we're staying ahead of. I would like to see what questions you might have, having looked at the capital improvement plan, and I can speak about specifics. Otherwise, what I'd like to do is then circle back with you and give you a little more detail later if you have time. But Dave gave me marching orders that I shouldn't talk for more than 5 minutes.
All right, Amy, thank you very much. Are there any questions for our city manager?
I have just one. This is Bruce View. On the Cedar Street Bridge replacement, is any of that going to be under the Martin Creek funding, or is that going to be separate, Amy?
It will likely be separate. There was no damage, no substantial damage reported on the Cedar Street Bridge during the event, so we were not able to place that into the FEMA funding request. There are 2 different programs. There's a bridge improvement grant. We call them the big grant for bridges through the state. And there's also federal and state aid that we've applied for. So we're hoping that we can get one or the other to help us with the replacement of the bridge. We'll see what happens there. If we don't get any funding, we're going to have to really reprioritize, because those are pretty big projects. Pine Street itself, that bridge was, I think I want to say 1.8, and that was just a real small, there's a real small span compared to the Cedar Street Bridge. So it is not part of the Martin Creek and FEMA application.
Amy, this is Mike. Question relating to the pool. I think it was listed, and I don't know exactly which page, the full amount of 15 million. Today, based on apparently some adjustments that have been made by the city commission over the last several months, what is the unallocated amount at this particular time? And when?
So I think our bid came in right around 10.6, I want to say. I'm 10.6, 10.7, something in that regard. We have had a couple change orders. We actually have a change order tonight the commission will consider. I believe that our opt-out was somewhere in the neighborhood of 14. So I think the best thing to do is to be wait until the project's over, see what those final bills are, and then make a determination there, whether it's paying off that early, or, we've talked about, does it make sense to have a perpetual care fund in place? And is there any logic in talking about using remaining funds for perpetual care? We know that our facilities are expensive to run and maintain. This is a much larger facility than we've had previously. And there might be some value in talking about that. But we definitely are fortunate that we didn't come near the bid or the estimated amount. So we are going to have some options there to talk about. Probably this time next year we'll be talking about those, because I think we'll be open, I believe, by this time next year. I hope so anyway. And we'll be closing out the project. So this will be a good discussion to have throughout the winter and spring next year.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. I had another follow-up on page 4, and that has to do with the radio system. And I think there was a major expenditure apparently this past year. Has that been completed? I see it is in there also for 20, but is realizing that's a critical infrastructure area.
Yes, it will be. We are wrapping it up, so I can't say that it's 100% completed. There's still some elements of the project that are not complete yet. However, it's by and large complete, and there's still some pieces left. So we were able to utilize some of our E911 funds that comes down through the state for that, but we've also used some local funds as well. That was a huge project, but something we had to do to make sure that our radios were compliant and that our tower was working well. So I think you'll see a lot more of those types of projects around the state. We kind of dipped our toe in the water, I think, a little early compared to some other communities, but we had to replace the physical radios, so we felt like it was a good time to do the project. So those things will be closed out, I believe, later this summer and fall.
Thank you. I'm going to go one more. When we're looking at 5 years is what we're looking at now, and looking ahead, let's say, for another 5 years, what would be, from a strategic standpoint, major projects that the city would be possibly addressing out into the future that we probably haven't seen yet? And I don't know if you put together, say, a 10-year plan or not.
Well, we haven't put together a 10-year plan, Mike, but of course we have a wish list. Many of those things on the wish list are amenities. And the answer that I would have given that question if you would have asked it a year ago or 2 years ago is a lot different than how I would answer it today. So, you know, we still have many things that are talked about in the community and are on the horizon. We still have a lot of athletic facilities that are spoken about. We still have the library project, which is being talked about. We have desire to do more work in the downtown. The Meridian Bridge is an icon that, you know, I don't think anyone's prepared to look at doing anything different other than using it as a pedestrian bridge, but that will take maintenance and ongoing perpetual care. We do have to make some long-term decisions in the next 10 years on our wastewater facility. We're going to make some major improvements, but will we be looking at an entirely new facility in the future? Or will we be looking at a rebuild of an existing facility or an expansion? So those are some of the things we need to talk about. It's hard in this situation that we're in as a, I guess, country and a world to really talk long term because, you know, the flood kind of knocked us off our feet and now we're getting a 1-2 punch with COVID-19. So, you know, I don't know, someone said that God laughs when you tell him your plans. Well, I guess God really laughed when I showed him my CIP plan because it just doesn't seem to be working out as much as I thought it was going to. But those conversations do happen. I would say mostly they take place at our strategic planning retreat. And you know, we talk about them in sort of broad spectrums. But I think this year will kind of be a year of let's recalibrate, let's circle the wagons and make an assessment where we're at after we get a little further past this pandemic, and then start thinking big again and more longer term into the future.
Thank you, Amy, for sharing those comments.
Are there any other questions tonight regarding the CIP? Hearing none, is there action this group would like to take tonight? Is there a motion?
I'd move to accept. This is due.
Erickson seconds it.
So motion to accept as presented by View, second by Erickson. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Dwayne, is there
Brad?
Yes.
Oh, just a quick comment or a question. Amy, when you're in, let's say this is recommended for approval and it's approved by the city tonight, how much flexibility does the city have or utilize as far as, let's say, the amount has been allocated or approved, but the flexibility within the given allocations as far as priorities? Or is that a minimum?
Yeah, they have a high degree of flexibility. You know, sometimes we have projects that come in and the bids we're under the engineer's estimate quite often, or sometimes we get surprised and we're over and we have to make choices and selections on various projects. That might be the case this year. If our sales tax softens greatly, our projects might come in well, and we may need to just make some priorities and move some projects into a future year. Also, we have to be flexible in that what we can get done in a year. Sometimes we always bite off a lot, and we don't always get it chewed. So I would say a high degree of flexibility, and this year especially, and we're going to ask the commission to maintain that flexibility and also be nimble if opportunities come up, you know, for a grant or for a funding. Maybe it's not even in the 2021 plan, but maybe it's in 2022. We're not going to be in a position where we can hold off if we have an opportunity either. So we're gonna ask them to be very flexible, but they can change it at any time. This is just a plan. You know, it helps guide us, but it's not etched in stone.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Dwayne, is there anyone at the meeting room that wishes to speak on this topic?
We have no one at the meeting room at this time.
Very good. Brooke, any phone or email commentary?
No commentary via phone or email on my end.
And Dave, how about YouTube?
We have no comments via YouTube about this item.
Very good. We have a motion to approve in a second, so I'll call for roll call, please.
Yes. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, aye. Mooney. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. And Winandy.
Andy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Very good. Amy, again, thank you for taking the time to present this to us tonight, and good luck as we continue to move forward through the year.
I'll stick around too. If there's time at the end, we can always talk more.
Very good. Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2 under new business, which is a plat review of lots 7 through 12 in block 8 of Westbrook Estates. Address is the west side of the 2500 block of Trevor Avenue. Mr. Ringo has information in our packet regarding this plat, but Dave, do you have any additional comments for the group tonight?
Just a standard comment about a phase of a plan that was already approved. The larger plan was approved. The larger subdividers agreement associated with this entire development was already approved. Those are the main things we look at when we look at individual phases, is just to make sure that we have all those requirements and stipulations in place. So staff recommends approval of the proposed plat.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Healy moves the motion.
Motion approved by Healy. Is there a second?
Yes, View, second.
And a second by View. Any final comments? Dwayne, anyone at the meeting room for this item?
We have no one appearing on this item at the meeting room.
Brooke, any phone or email?
There is no phone or email commentary for this item.
Thank you. And Dave, the YouTube channel?
We have none on this item.
Very good. I get roll call, please.
Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, aye. And Winandy.
Andy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Very good. That will move along to the planning, or to the city commission, excuse me. Action item number 3 is a plat review of lots 5A and 5B of block 3 in Westbrook Estates, being a replat of lot 5. Addresses on this item are 2508 and 2510 Dorian Drive. Again, Dave, any additional comments on this item?
It's a standard duplex plat. You can actually see the foundation if you look at the air photo in this case. They usually wait to do the plat dividing duplex until after the foundation's poured, just to make sure they get the exact location for the title work. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions for staff on this item? Is there a motion?
Erickson moves to accept the plat proposal.
Mooney seconds that motion by Erickson.
Motion by Erickson, second by Mooney for approval. Any final comments? Dwayne, anyone at your location to comment here?
We have no one appearing on this item.
Brooke, email or phone?
There are no email nor phone commentary on this item.
And Mr. Mingo on YouTube?
We have none on YouTube.
Very good. I will call roll call, please.
Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, I. View.
View, aye.
View, I. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, I. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, I. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, I.
Very good. That will again move forward to the City Commission. Item number 4 tonight is another plat review of Tract 1A and a replat of Tract 2 of Block 3, Missouri View Addition, 2603 West 11th Street. Mr. Mingo, any comments here?
The tract that's creating the right-of-way, Tract 1A, I still don't understand how that wasn't dedicated decades ago as a part of a section line, but anytime we're platting or replatting right-of-way to make sure it's there, I have no concerns with that or problems with that at all. It's always a good idea. The other part of this plat is just an adjustment of the west property line of Tract 2. All of the appropriate right-of-way has been dedicated. As you know, that's what our review in this area is for, adjacent, because it's not adjacent to the corporate limits. It's in our 3-mile platting jurisdiction. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions for staff? Is there a motion?
Mooney moves for approval.
Erickson will second.
Motion by Mooney, second by Erickson for approval. Any final comments? Dwayne, anyone at your location comment here?
We have no one appearing for this item.
Brooke, phone or email comments?
No phone nor email comments on this item.
Dave, YouTube?
There are no YouTube comments on this item.
Very good. Roll call, please, Brooke.
View.
View, aye.
View, I. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, I. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, I. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, I. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, I.
All right, that item will also move on to City Commission then. We will take up number 5, a plat review of lots 28 and 29 in Crestview Homes subdivision, 302 and 304 Lilac Lane. Again, information in our packets. Dave, anything additional here?
Nothing additional. The next 2 items are both out in White Crane Estates, and they were part of a previously approved subdivision plan for the area. County zoning jurisdiction.
Any questions for staff? Is there a motion?
Erickson moves to accept the proposed plat.
Healy seconds.
Motion by Erickson, second by Healy. Any further discussion? Dwayne, anyone to make comment on this item?
We have no one to comment on this item.
Brooke, email or phone?
There are no email nor phone comments on this item.
And Dave, how about YouTube?
No YouTube comments on this item.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, aye. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 6. This one is a plat review of lots 53 and 54 in Crestview Homes subdivision. The address is 302 and 304 Tulip Lane. Any questions for staff on this one? Hearing none, is there a motion?
View moves to approve.
Erickson will second it.
Motion by View, second by Erickson. Any further discussion? Dwayne, anyone present to comment on this item?
We have no one to comment on this item.
And Brooke, any email or phone comments?
No email nor phone comments on this item.
And Dave, any YouTube input?
There's no YouTube input on this item.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, aye. And Winandy.
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7 under new business, which again is a plat review of tract 4A, DJ's addition. Address is the 700 block of East Side Drive. Dave, any additional comments on this item?
No additional comments, just a part of a housekeeping measure to clean up some accretion ground issue on their part, is my understanding what's going on. They'll have some process to go through at the county level because the tract is smaller than what county zoning allows. If it was in town, we would have them tie it with a deed restriction to another tract that would therefore bring it into compliance. Those issues will be have to be addressed at the county level since it's under county zoning jurisdiction. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions for staff on this item?
Dave, is the county restriction due to the acreage?
Yeah, that's correct. It's this plat of this accretion ground cleanup isn't really a developable site on its own, and it's just smaller than what the county's minimum lot size is there. I've had discussions about that with county planning, and again, that's their jurisdiction for that purpose. I told them how we would handle it if it was in town. So I don't know what their decision is going to be. I know Moose is in the room there, so he's going to be seeing this on an agenda at the County Planning Commission meeting. Again, if it was in town, we'd just tie it to the adjacent lot with a contract. It wouldn't need to be replatted separately, or there would be no variance associated with it. But
Well, I know there's some issues with taking agricultural land out of production, but this one doesn't seem to fall in that category. So that was my question.
yeah, and the other thing I looked at was the extension of the section line right away, which, it doesn't make any sense because you fall into the sand when you drive south off there. So, from our perspective, from the city's perspective, our review is for the street grid only, and have no concerns or any other comments for the county related to that. They're going to have to work through the lot size issue at their process.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll approve to accept. This is view.
Is there a second?
Erickson would second it.
Very good. Motion by Views, second by Erickson. Any final comments? Dwayne, is there anyone at the meeting room to discuss this action item?
No public comments on this item.
Brooke, any email or phone comments?
No email nor phone comments on this item.
And Dave, any YouTube commentary?
There is no YouTube commentary, and I'm really curious to know who the other people are watching. Well, now there's 4. So if there was only 1 or 2 people watching, now we're up to 4.
All right. Well, very good. I will call for a roll call, please, Brooke.
Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. View.
View, aye.
View, aye. Keeley.
Healy, aye.
Keeley, aye. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. And Winandy.
Andy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
So that plat will also move on next to the city commission. That takes care of new business for this evening. Other business, we have the June 2020 building permit report. That was included in our packets. Dave, any discussion on that report?
Yeah, there's a fairly extensive write-up in your memo. Just take a minute, if you would, sometime and go through and read that. There's some interesting information about individual projects. What I can say is 2020 is the construction sector is extremely active this year. In fact, one of the comments that we hear from even individual homeowners trying to do projects is how hard it is to find a contractor because everybody's booked or overbooked. If you look at the valuation totals for permits to date, yes, we're behind last year, but if you take the Mount Marty Fieldhouse out, we're ahead of last year. And we've got a couple of big projects that'll be issued permits for in the next 2 weeks here that'll show up on next month's report. So 2020, all in all, without the outlier of the Mount Marty College Fieldhouse, is well ahead of average for construction permit value in the community. So, you know, as some sectors are lagging, we have other sectors that are extremely busy.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments or questions around the building permits? Hearing none, is there any more or other business for the good of the order this evening?
Any more questions for Amy about the CIP?
Amy, I think we ought to, hi, this is Bruce again. We better look at maybe putting a light at the corner of Douglas and 21st Street, because that's getting to be a mess. And once the pool opens, I think we're going to have some moving traffic issue there, besides just having a 4-way stop. On the way through today, I saw 3 people go through in front of me, and the first one should have yielded to begin with.
We have had an incident with people watching the construction and not watching the road. Yeah, we do anticipate the traffic to intensify there. So we've talked about that, whether a light is the right solution or other type of traffic device. But probably what will happen is we'll have to measure the amount of traffic we have there once the pool is complete. But that isn't on our radar for a number of reasons too. We also have the 2 schools that kind of flank the sides there, and then a major commercial area. So that is on our radar, and I'll reiterate that to Brad Mosier and Adam Haberman to take a look at.
My wife probably would like a roundabout there just because they're kind of sporty.
They are sporty, but we are taking donations. We could name it, you know, the View Roundabout if she's interested.
Everybody's kind of chuckling because I think that would be a disaster in Yankton.
Not my idea.
All right, any other questions for Amy? Very good. Letting you off easy tonight, I guess, Amy. Any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Erickson moves to adjourn the meeting.
Ely seconds.
Motion by Eric. We have to take a vote on this one, Dave.
Yes, please, roll call.
All right. Roll call, please, Brooke.
Yep, View,
Yes.
View, aye. Healy,
Ely, aye.
Healy, aye. Mooney,
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Erickson,
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. And Winandy,
Andy, aye.
Winandy, aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, Amy.